What's on there, please?
Just the one in my house, my boyfriend's downstairs, because I can take a shower and swim, and they're going to come back for it.
How many was that?
Two. Like, it's blood all over me now.
Have you been stabbed or have you just been assaulted? Or?
Oh my God, it's stabbed in the face, in the arm.
Have you got any descriptions what you're wearing or anything?
They've got my son of mask.
Right, Catherine, for this scene in this aggravated burglary / stabbing, there is a lot of blood all over from the outside of the front door into the full living room.
At the crack of dawn in Sunderland, a man and his dog have been violently assaulted and stabbed in their home by two unknown assailants.
The male occupant has been dragged out of the bed, received slash wounds to the face, to the arm, and he's been stabbed. There's been a trainer and a balaclava mask which has been recovered from the scene. We recovered them because the weather had started to change and it was going to start to rain.
I know, that's fine.
So they're back at Alpha 5. The scene's been secured, waiting for you to arrive.
Right, no worries. Might have a peek in to see what it's like first to decide what we're going to have to put on.
Nicola Stark is the newest and youngest of Northumbria Police's forensic team.
Somebody's seen the offenders here.
Yeah.
They're generally just outside.
Just under there.
It's her job to find the forensic evidence which will help to identify any suspects and connect them to the crime.
There was two offenders, a person and a dog hurt, blood everywhere. How am I going to get the best evidence, and how am I going to get evidence from here that's going to then secure who, other than the IP, has been in this property at the time of the incident? We've got IP, possibly both offenders are bleeding and the dog.
And there's like footwear marks in the blood.
I was talking about footprints in blood, so someone's bare feet.
Well, yeah, there's that as well.
Crime scene manager Catherine Bolan provides support from CSI headquarters.
When you first walk in the door, you can't help but stand on blood to get anywhere else in the house.
Right, well, if I get to come down, I'll get to bring some stepping plates for you as well, and then at least you've got some of them if you need them.
Thank you very much. See you in a bit.
No problem, I'll speak to you in a bit.
Crime scene manager's role is to think about all the things that might affect the examination of that scene. You risk not examining a scene correctly. You risk an offender walking free.
This is my first proper aggravated burglary / stabbing that I've done. Yeah. I'm going to photograph it outside first, just because it's starting to rain.
Observation is the first thing you do. You don't do anything until you've had a look. You have to be able to do something slowly, carefully and methodically, because if you rush round, you're going to miss something.
So I'm starting to swab the blood from the spots that are marked outside. A swab from each of them. Due to the weather, I'm just trying to get them straight away now. It's all evidence, ultimately. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if I can work out a path, because there's trainer marks.
Yeah.
So that looks like a trainer.
We know that certainly one offender was wearing trainers and we've got those recovered.
Right. There's footprints, bare feet, and there's footwear.
Nicola is looking for two distinctive footwear patterns that could belong to the offenders.
These patterns here, these wiggly lines. You know Darren, who was here before, the DC? He's just sent a photo over of the pattern of the trainer. We found a shoe, I think it was either in the street or behind there, which matches this mark here.
Footwear marks in blood are better on harder surfaces, whereas carpeted surfaces, you won't necessarily see it and the carpet will break up the patterning.
There's also evidence to suggest that the IP, or injured party, used an air pistol to defend himself.
This weapon of his is behind the front door, so I don't know if he's got it out in some form of self-defence to scare somebody.
Outside, detectives have spotted what could be vital evidence in the neighbour's garden.
Are we believing that offenders have bought that?
There's a possible witness who's seen an offender discard it, so...
Right. There's a knife being found in number 7's back garden. So that to me only suggests that they've come out this way, gone through, dropped the knife and then ran off, because they've said that they've run off up the street.
You're quite regular, you'll get weapons left at scenes. Quite often you'll get weapons left in victims.
The victim has told police that his dog bit one of the assailants, so it's possible that their blood could be on the knife.
I'm not too sure if that's off the dog, you know, there, because there's hairs in with it.
Less than a mile away, the police search team have found a potential suspect.
Come over here, slowly. Unball that now. Do as you're told. What's your name, can I? Lee what? Lee Dunn. We got arrested on suspicion of sexually assault.
As the search continues for the second suspect, Lee Dunn is taken to Southwick Police Station.
Right, photograph in there to see one Westgart's mate.
Upstairs in CID, DS Nicola McAllister has been assigned the case.
Lee Dunn, we have witness evidence pointing to him. We have the fact that an offender's trainer was left in the house. Lee Dunn was arrested hiding in the garden minus his footwear. He also has a dog bite to the back of his leg. So forensically for him and circumstantially, I think he's quite well evidenced as being part of this this aggravated burglary. But potentially we have a second offender out there who didn't care about being present when a knife was used, or may have actually used the knife themselves. So therefore, we've got to try and get the offender in.
Detectives begin by questioning Lee Dunn.
Can you tell us where you were at about 5 p.m. on Tuesday morning? No comment. Can you tell us who you were with? No comment.
There is kind of an unwritten law amongst thieves, and it's not very often that one offender will give up the name of the other.
With no leads to identify the missing offender, CID turn their attention to CCTV footage obtained from near the crime scene.
We're here, we're looking at the offenders before the incident actually occurred. They've parked the car a couple of streets away, walked along some footpaths behind some properties. Obviously, the guy on the right's the one we've got in custody. The guy on the left's the offender who's not known at the minute, but he's carrying a balaclava here. Or we think it's a balaclava. He's carrying something that could be.
Right.
Detectives believe that the balaclava that was recovered earlier in the day belongs to their missing man.
For me, Lee Dunn, the evidence is overwhelming against him, OK?
Right.
If you imagine you've got two offenders and we know...
Nicola calls the head of forensics, Kirsty Potter.
So therefore, we're looking at the potential second offender.
So we need to target the most likely exhibits to get you that link to this incident.
They both believe that the lab's first priority should be to examine the balaclava for the second offender's DNA.
We know he was wearing a black covering over his face.
The black
balaclavas will be done by the time you come back.
At the lab, I think they're doing that this afternoon.
Right, OK. OK, no worries. Catch you later, Kirsty. Bye.
Bye.
Balaclavas are great. Balaclavas, discarded headwear, discarded masks, they're great in any offence. Something that has been removed quick time from the head and face of an offender could have hairs, could have saliva. Saliva will persist on fabric. Yeah, what I'd really like is blood from IP, saliva from second offender.
Yeah, so that'll be results off for Tuesday.
Perfect.
Ideally, the team want to find blood from the victim to link the mass to the crime, and saliva from the second offender to find out who they are and to place them at the scene.
But the problem with that is you can't ever say if it had previously been a pillowcase that it hasn't been a coincidental saliva deposit. So if you have eye holes and no mouth hole, when we target a mask, we target the expected mouth regions.
So you think some of this is coming
so
through?
These here, they're almost, and I don't know if they're a bit lighter on the inside, but a bit more smeared.
And if the only saliva you find on that pillowcase is exactly where the mouth would be if it was worn as a mask, you could possibly support the fact it was a clean pillowcase and it was only worn as a mask.
So there are those two, and then there's that one.
Yeah. So we've not done a screen yet?
No, we've not done a screen yet.
The screen to find the amylase in the saliva requires wetting the mask, so the dry blood is recovered first.
I don't know if it's mixed with something or not, because it just looks a bit... Yes, of course you can.
The Castle-Mayer test gives the scientists an instant visual indication as to whether or not there is blood present on the fabric. Areas are swabbed and a drop of phenolphthalein reagent and hydrogen peroxide is added. If there's blood present, the swab rapidly turns pink.
That's coming up nicely.
Yep.
With blood found, they cut out and retain a section of the mask. Now they can move on to the wet testing to find if there's presence of amylase, an enzyme found in saliva.
So I'm just going to put the balaclava paper onto the item. This is basically a paper that's lined with starch, and if there's any amylase present, then it should break down the starch in the paper and it should turn a different shade of blue. I'm going to slightly dampen the item, and then I will lay the balaclava paper over the top of it, and then fully wet the paper. And then amylase in the saliva is normally detected within 10 minutes. As you can see, it's changing colour, and that's an indication that there is a fatty bass reaction taking place. Tell that there is an indication of saliva present.
It's fatty bass positive, really quite strong at 5 minutes.
The samples will now be sent to a DNA lab. The blood will be compared against the victim's DNA, and the saliva will be run through the National DNA database in the hope that it flags up a name for the second offender.
Police emergency.
Hello, I can have the police please.
Where do you need the police to?
Walker Avenue, Coral.
Walker Avenue, what's happening?
A woman's feeling she's in this next door.
And is she still with you?
She is, yeah. We've got her in shot.
A 27-year-old woman has allegedly been raped by two men in a block of flats.
717.
Roker.
Yeah.
Hi, yes. We're about to leave South Shield Station and head to Roker.
It is a stranger rape. She's 27, but she has learning difficulties.
Okay.
She's been at a bus stop where she's been befriended by an Asian male who's asked her to go back to his address. As she's walking to go to his address, he suggested it was go and see my friend and has taken her into like a block of asylum seeker flats. At this moment in time, the scene hasn't been examined. CSM's going there. Once he's finished fingerprinting it.
I want the flats just searching just for like documentation to try and identify who actually resides at that address.
All right. Speak soon. Bye, bye-bye.
The police describe it as a stranger rape when a victim is attacked by a suspect that they have either never met or have only met immediately before the attack. Both suspects have fled the scene, and the best chance of identifying them now rests on crime scene manager Alan Sayers and his forensic team.
When we get a rape scene, these are the most complex scenes to deal with.
You've got a female saying she's being raped. How do you prove that, you know?
So I want to get out of that crime scene whatever I can in respect of identifying the person that's responsible for what's went on in there.
Looking for condoms, tissues.
See, it's fully carpeted, so the footwear's out of the question.
Yes, they're doing bedding.
There's good potential for that to be semen, that. See the way it's glinting.
First thing I would be looking for
are bodily fluids, which is crucial.
What we're going to do here is basically Sarah's going to, we've got a wet swab there. She's going to take a swab from it.
just, it would normally go right there. It's just starting to kick in there now. See it there going purple? It's like a violet. That's telling us that there's semen on there, on that stain that we've just swabbed.
I'm not happier that we've actually found semen. There's potential for other evidence to be there as well, you know, such as the fibres and saliva. So we're not just looking for one thing.
We need to photograph the whole of that bedsit, including the bed, the sheets, the position of the doors, the position of the windows, whether the light switches are on. These are all crucial to the investigation. The investigators refer to them, the scientists refer to them, and most importantly, the jury refer to them. Photographs are probably the most important piece of information coming out of that crime scene to put things in place.
And then when you're done, then we'll have to go in up to one of us a chance to search for some documents after that.
Yeah, we'll sort that out.
Yeah.
Now on scene, Detective Cassie Hyland needs to know who was renting the room where the rape took place.
Stranger rape, it's one of the most horrendous crimes. If there's only that murder that I think carry a life sentence, these two men are really dangerous. And what's the worry is if somebody does it once, are they going to do it again? It could be a violent assault, it could be another sexual assault, it could effectively ruin somebody else's life. And I need to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's why getting them into custody as soon as possible is so important.
Who's the boy that lives at number 4 then?
I don't know his name because I don't know how to speak English.
When did you last see him?
Yesterday. It was yesterday evening, like that. I think they come for
sex.
I
Right.
think so.
Right, okay.
There's a possible witness here that we're speaking to who says that a male and female came, knocked on the door, and he let them in. He says he will give a statement.
Notes there?
When it comes to actually recovering forensic evidence, we've got what's called destructive and non-destructive processes. Fingerprinting, they are the destructive process. We're using powders, chemicals to treat surfaces and things like that. And once you've done that, you can't really go back.
Yeah, what we're doing now is looking for any fingerprints that's probably been deposited on the smoother surfaces from the victim to identify that the victim was actually in this room. I'll just nip out and see the officers, give them an indication how they can come in and have a look at the room and get a name there, you know.
Get to that point where you think you've gathered all the evidence, you know, you're ready to close that scene. It's the hardest part of the investigation to be able to do that because you cannot go back into that crime scene because of contamination issues. Evidence could have been arrived there once you've took the tapes down and things like that, and it wouldn't stand up in court.
Right. Yeah, if you want to come through, yeah. I'll just run you through a few things that we've got.
You know, you're ready to hand everything over to the SIO. They actually do a final walkthrough with us. The first thing they're going to be wanting to know is there anything in there that can identify a person. So letters, any information in respect to them that they've been filling in, that's been delivered to the address.
Has everything been photographed in?
All photographed
Brilliant.
in there, yeah. What we have done, we've photographed these documents just to show that obviously whoever it is that's living here. That's the medicator.
All right, yeah. Araz Mustafa Abdullah.
They now have a name, and the prints and semen could be crucial evidence further down the line. But the fastest way of identifying suspects in a rape case is to find traces of their DNA on the victim. The victim is taken to a Specialist Sexual Assault Referral Centre, or SARC, for a medical examination and to have swabs taken by a forensic nurse.
It's a very intimate examination to undergo, and we could take up to 10 vaginal swabs when we do an examination. The sooner that we can get the forensic evidence, the better. So we would look to take exterior vaginal swabs. So we're going to do the swabs from down below now, if that's okay. You're in a perfect position there. Inserting then a speculum into the vagina so we can see if there's any internal injuries. and taking high vaginal or endocervical swabs. Very, very last swab that we're going to take is round where your cervix is, okay? That is often the very best place to get that evidence from, because we know that semen and sperm can last up to 7 days after an assault. That's it, all done. Okay, you've done brilliant.
The victim's swabs will be sent to the lab first thing in the morning to test for the presence of semen.
During the forensic medical examination in the SARC, that is the start of the forensic journey for this sample. There's always a hope. You find that semen, you get that DNA match, and that is enough to try and identify the offenders.
Emergency. I've just had a phone call on my mobile, off my daughter's mobile, from a woman saying she's being raped. Right. Yeah, well, I'm trying to get through to my daughter's phone and it's just ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. Right, okay.
I was in the house and she wasn't back. I said, oh, where is she? Because I was starting to get worried. And then my phone rang. What was going through my mind really was, you know, how's it happened? You know, why has it happened? Especially to her.
As well as the swabs, the victim needs to provide a full account of the incident to detectives. Due to her learning difficulties, her mum has come along for support.
She's very loving it, and if she can do anything for you, she'll do it. She just sees the good in everybody. Because of our learning disabilities, she's got no understanding of, like, really basic things, you know, danger or anything like that. She's got no understanding at all.
She looks really upset, doesn't she?
Right, tell me what happened. When I was down at the bus stop at 8 and that, he just went, will you come back to Vine for a drink? Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, because I didn't know that they were going to do what they've done. Yeah. And he says, oh, yeah, we'll go to my friend's first and then come back down. And his friend's house was next to a good piece. And tell me what happened in the room. They just took my knickers off, pushed us on the bed and put his penis up. And he left the room while his friend came in. And what did his friend do to you? He took me top dress off, off, and he took his penis up his too. I wish I'd been with her that day, because we're always together and we always go out together. You know, and if I'd only gone with her, she'd said, do you want to come, Mum? And I went, no, I'm just going to stop in today. And sometimes you think, if I'd only gone, it wouldn't have happened. But then again, you can't be there 24/7, you know? She's got her life and I've got mine.
At the forensic lab in Wakefield, the scientists have begun the analysis of the victim's swabs.
So as I look down, I'm hoping to see pinky red coloured sperm cells, which I can.
I've got the results from the vaginal swabs.
Yep.
We found semen on all of the swabs.
So that's the low vaginal, high vaginal and endocervical.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we're planning to send the
endocervical swabs off to DNA today.
Oh, brilliant.
Now, the scientists need to extract and interpret the DNA from the semen. If successful, the results could provide the evidence needed to identify the two suspects. In the violent stabbing case, detectives are awaiting their forensic lab results. They're hoping the DNA in the saliva found on the homemade balaclava could lead them to their second suspect.
Afternoon, Kirsty Potter.
Oh, hiya, Kirsty.
Obviously just going through your email, the black fabric.
It's come back to Lee Dunn.
Yeah.
You wanted another name, I know you did. You wanted somebody else
in the picture. So
really, we need to try and find you that ident to somebody else.
Through the other exhibits now.
Yes.
As the forensics team look to start a new strategy, the detectives have uncovered another lead.
So some new intelligence has come in via a few different sources.
Yep.
And the same name has been mentioned on more than one occasion.
The new suspect has 171 arrests to his name and is well known to the police. But they now need to find forensic evidence linking him to the crime scene.
We have to prove he's guilty first, and forensics will be what key.
We've got Lee Dunn's blood on the balaclava. You want the second offender?
Yes.
OK, so what else have we got then that's going to get offender number 2? Usually we use DNA to tell us who a potential offender might be or to support who we think that offender is. And if somebody suggests they know who that second offender is, we will bear that in mind when we set our forensic strategy. Is DNA what we need? Not necessarily. Have we got the bloody footwear marks in the scene? Have we got the fingerprints in the scene?
Forensics on recovered trainers.
Lee Dunn shoes,
Yeah.
Lee Dunn in scene, Lee Dunn fast-track forensics.
There was another trainer mark. There was another
In
footwear
blood?
mark in blood. That wasn't that nice pattern that went with the Adidas one. It was a different pattern.
Right, could that been the victim's?
No, because
He
there was
was bare-
barefoot.
was he in bed?
It was a perfect barefoot in blood.
Right, so tell me more, Nicola.
This has all been in the front of the living room. It wasn't a full trainer mark. It was only like little bits, but it was totally different to that.
To the other
bubbly, wavy
Adidas
line
ones.
pattern. Yeah.
Are we
these.
talking about this one?
So that was upstairs in the bedroom as well.
Have you gel lifted a bloody mark?
Yeah.
Right, OK. If there is something characteristic about a footwear mark left at a scene when compared to suspect's footwear in custody, we can get really strong evidence from that. But like DNA, like other evidence types, there will be footwear marks from everybody else who has been in that address that we have to work out which footwear marks are related to the offenders. How many gel lifts you got of that mark?
One from downstairs.
Right.
One from upstairs. But if
Who's
we've
gone
up there-
upstairs then?
He was barefoot upstairs, so obviously, you know, he's gone back up when he's been bleeding.
Somebody has gone up with blood on their shoes upstairs. You've no reason to think your second offender went upstairs. I'm increasingly suspecting a cop boot. So whoever responded, did they go upstairs? Which they would have done, stabilise the scene, check for offenders, look for bodies. So you need to check movement, first officer attending then, and what they've got on their feet, body worn video. What else?
The knife examining.
Agreed. This knife was of interest to me because this is not from the scene, is it? This is brought to the scene by one of the offenders.
Yeah.
So, yes, you think Lee Dunn had it in his hand, but I think we can accept there's enough confusion at this scene that we can't assume anything now. If a knife is brought to an address, it's useful information to find out whose DNA is on it. We might not get as far as they were the ones who launched the knife into the victim, but we're certainly building that picture up. Even if Lee Dunn has had it in his hand and this is Lee Dunn's blood on it, we want to try and get some handler off the knife away from the blood to see if this knife is from the home address of offender 2. High risk, you're just going to get the blood profile, but if this is somebody else's knife regularly used in the kitchen, regularly used for whatever, that's what we're hoping for, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really useful to you if we can even get offender number 2 on the blade because it's his knife or whatever. So we need full blood, handler, fingerprints.
While the knife is sent to the lab, the police start a search for the named criminal.
Let's have a look at his picture. He's got 18 warnings, threats to life, violence, drugs, organised crime, firearms. In terms of the threat he poses, he has tried to apply the handbrake on in a police car when he's been locked up before. We've got 2 main addresses over the last year which we know that he's been using, which is his mother's address, and we've got girlfriends or possibly ex-girlfriends, and we've got his child's addresses from ex-partners. Should we find him, I've got a list here of all the stuff that we need to seize.
Chris?
Yeah?
There's obviously a light on upstairs.
Ah, the light's not on, light, mate.
It's not a light, is it not?
Nah.
Touch DNA can last up to 6 weeks on a surface, So if the second offender has previously owned the knife, his DNA could still be there.
Some people can have prolonged contact with an individual or a surface and not leave a lot of DNA. Some people readily shed their DNA.
But it's not as straightforward as just swabbing the handle.
There is some red staining on the swab, so I think there's just some very light staining on the handle, which you can't really see.
Whereabouts? There.
I think it's there.
Quite often we see tiny amounts of blood under the microscope that aren't visible when we recover the knife. The amount of DNA we detect from a body fluid, the blood profiles, is so much stronger than the touch DNA. That blood profile will swamp out everything, low level from touch. But we can't be really prescriptive about that because we need the information.
I have swabbed an area of the scene which appeared to have no visible blood.
We'll definitely send that sample and send some blood as well.
I'll just come in and have a word for a second, please. Is he here?
No.
When was the last time you seen him?
Early on it's here.
See where he's going?
I didn't.
That's all done, isn't it?
With no sightings of the second suspect, detectives are hoping they will have more success with the results from the knife.
CRE, Darren Martin speaking.
Hello, it's Mark at Forensics. The mixture that was on the handle of the knife.
Yeah.
The DNA profile of Lee Dunn is fairly well represented in that at a low level.
Right. The bad news is we've got nothing for a second offender.
Okay.
Detectives on the rape case are still trying to locate their two suspects. Araz Abdullah, whose name they discovered at the crime scene.
He's not here, however, he has been here earlier today, according to our witness.
And the unknown other man who picked up the victim at the bus stop.
This is the CCTV footage from the go-ahead northeast bus that was passing the bus stop where the victim was, where she's allegedly met the offender prior to being taken to the address.
With no available CCTV from where the rape took place, the police are hoping footage from a local bus will give them a face.
Hopefully, when we get to the bus stop, which is coming up now, it'll show the victim with the gentleman who's then gone on to attack her. So the bus stop is just coming up now. That is the victim by the looks of things. And obviously she's standing with a fella.
It doesn't help that he's standing literally behind a post. How unlucky is that for us?
Because he's kind of like face on, but that's definitely them.
Yeah. Oh, it's a bit gutting. It was the one piece of CCTV we were going to get. We're relying on forensics now, so we're waiting for the lab to contact us and say we've got a hit or we haven't got a hit.
The semen extracted from the victim's intimate samples is now being processed at the DNA lab in Teddington.
With a semen sample, we go onto an instrument where we have a series of capillaries, which are really thin glass tubes that essentially acts like a sieve. So when we inject the DNA through it, it'll separate out the fragments of DNA by size. And as they go through this machine, there's a laser applied and we can actually see the DNA as it goes through. And the machine reads that and produces essentially what looks like a graph. This region that we're looking at here is called amelogenin, and essentially what that is a fragment of DNA that's found on both the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. So if we're looking at DNA from a male individual like we are here, we'd see it twice because we'd see it once from the X chromosome and once from the Y chromosome. The rest of the profile is another 16 regions, and they're what are referred to as short tandem repeats. And the number of times it repeats varies from individual to individual and allows us to identify one from the other. But they don't really mean anything other than giving us the ability to generate almost like a barcode for that individual. Everyone's entire DNA profile will be unique, with the exception of identical twins.
And if the barcode matches an individual on the DNA database, it will give the police a name. But in this case, there's a problem. There is a mixture of two males' DNA.
When we've got a mixed DNA profile, there's no way of us looking down a microscope and being able to work out which sperm cells are from different individuals. Whereas previously we would only see 1 or 2 peaks at each region, now we've got maybe 4 in each location that we're looking at. The interpretations are quite complex, and particularly mixture interpretation. Quite often it's a bit like a logic puzzle or Sudoku. When we're calculating a statistic for a match to a DNA profile, all of our processes involve 2 scientists looking at the same piece of evidence who interpret the result completely independent. They don't know what the other person's opinion is, to ensure that there's no potential bias introduced by one person's view of a particular outcome. And then once they have done that interpretation, the 2 are compared. So, what do you think?
My final decisions were around the fact that there's probably no clear major that we could reliably search on the database for this result.
I agree, it's complicated. There's a lot of sharing. We don't have enough 4 peaks for us to be able to put something really robust on.
Because they're sharing one-to-one there.
We've got a lot of these positions where we've actually only got 2 or 3 peaks, and that just makes the whole result more complex and less certain for pulling out a single.
Yeah.
It's too complex for us to interpret for a database load.
Agreed.
It's difficult for the scientists to separate or interpret the results of the mixed profile without a DNA reference sample from one of the 2 suspects. 3 days after the alleged rape, Araz Abdullah arrives at Southwick Police Station.
Araz approached police and said, I believe I've been the victim of a crime, but the officer straight away believed that he may be one of the suspects. So if somebody is arrested, one of the first things is, are there any forensic opportunities here?
Sorted.
Araz's DNA is sent off to the lab to see if it matches one of the profiles in the mixture. Now detectives can begin the interview phase and get his account of what happened.
So who was there?
My name's Saeed.
His name's Saeed.
How do you know Saeed?
نفرض لي دوشي من بدوز عربين. هذا مال دقاق وفم داخل سراك شابن. هذا أوان درجان ده أنا خصبو. رايق بالي فيوان. ماشي. تبوم هنا كذا كذا رابي. أنا مساعد لما أبرونا دري تقوافل. هذا صعيب. هرشيكل. من الدار أخم نبض سكة. مزبور بوم لقالي بيك.
I was so frightened, I was scared of my life. That's why I was pressured to have sex.
ده صلانية دي خد اسمك يعني بلقالي بيك يعني بوجود. لبناني كان ما بجد.
That I would have to be killed or I would to have sex.
I think sometimes you have your own opinions on the interview based on the evidence that we've got. His account was that they had kicked the internal door in. Well, that's a provable lie. That's something that we are able to prove and say that did not happen. We have a witness that says it didn't happen, and with the photographs, we've got forensic evidence so that there is no damage to that door.
Right, if you can explain to this gentleman, please, that the investigation has gone to our Crown Prosecution Service and they've come to a decision to charge him with an allegation of a sexual assault. Bring him back.
Come back. Come back. Come back.
Please just put the phone down. If you can just bear with us, please. So you get him to stand up. Right, if you could just put that to his ear. You can just ask him to compose himself, please, because it's very important that he understands.
When I rang the victim and said Raz had been arrested, I felt that was the best news, but straight away she asked the question, what about the other person?
At the lab, scientists are loading Raz's DNA sample to see if they can identify it as one of those in the complex mixture.
There's more of a one-to-one there, and there, and there.
It's a match. Now, with his extracted, they are left with the unique barcode of the second suspect, known only as Saeed.
I've been able to pull out the second DNA profile of another male. I've now sent that for a one-off search on the DNA database.
Right, excellent. How long does that usually take for it to come back?
They quote a turnaround of 3 days, but they're usually in a day or two.
The National DNA Database contains DNA profiles for every person charged with an offence. In 23 years, it has grown to contain 6 million profiles.
That's great. So in terms of a strategy then...
I'll authorise an urgent database search.
I'm happy with that. Thank you, Kirsty.
OK,
Cheers.
bye, Craig.
Bye.
Although Kirsty has authorised a search, Middle Eastern males make up less than 1% of those stored on the database.
The likelihood of the person you're looking for being held on the database is determined by previous offending activity. If somebody hasn't lived in this country for very long and hasn't come to police attention, if their profile isn't currently one of those 6 million profiles held on the database, then you will load your semen profile and get no matches.
Oh, hi, it's PC Highland here from Northumbria Police. I've had a lot of contact with her and her family about how she's been struggling mentally and the effects that it's having on her physically and on her family. Has it been really difficult?
Been having to hide the keys, so she got to get out. She's been cutting herself all over her legs.
I thought you had talked to the doctor about this. And are you taking the antidepressants that they've gave you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many did you take a day?
1. But the physical thing. Take about 4 weeks to get your system. So you're not on our system yet. She's only been on them for about 2.5 weeks.
Right. I need to be able to tell the victim we've got a name. We are so close at this point, but if he's got this far in life and he's not committed any crimes, then it's really frustrating to think about him not being on that database. And there is a chance that we might not find him.
On the stabbing case, there's been a breakthrough. The second suspect has been found and arrested. But so far, the investigation team haven't unearthed any forensic evidence to establish if he's linked to the crime.
Just in custody. OK, thanks, bye. So, we're not going to disclose any details about what we've got. OK.
The forensic work for this job is massive, trying to link the second offender to the scene.
We're going into interview.
All right. All right.
The first question for you is, did you commit an aggravated burglary?
I've not committed any offences. I've not... anything I'm getting accused of. That's all I've got to say for now.
OK.
Got a custody strip search authorised.
Does he look like he has any visible marks? Because there's been quite a fight at this aggravated burglary. Anything like that on him that you could see?
There was nothing on, nothing noticed on his hands and things like that. However, when we've strip searched him, he's removed his top. There was what we actually thought looked like a injury consistent with a puncture wound, or almost like a pen-sized hole, sort of like in this area here.
Okay.
Above his hip.
Sorry.
He said it was something to do with climbing over a fence in the last few days, and he's sustained that injury due to that.
Can you add that into your statement? Can you also add on what he said they were caused by? Thank you.
CID believe his injury could be from a bite mark from the victim's dog. It could hold forensic potential, so CSI Nicola Stark is sent to custody to photograph it. But while taking the pictures, the suspect makes a remark that raises further suspicion.
When I've been photographing, he's lifted his top up and he's just literally muttered, "It's not an effing dog bite, I've been shot." Which for me then clicked in my head is the IP said he shot the second offender in the side, but then he's had it point at the second offender's grabbed it.
Good afternoon, DC Thompson.
Hello, it's just Nicola from Sago. Did you ask him about his injuries to his side and his comments in custody?
Yeah, so he wasn't admitting anything, he just says, but I wondered if we could try and get the gun looked at. That might have something on it, you never know.
No bother, I'll get it sorted for you. All right, cheers,
Nicola, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If the BB gun recovered from the scene was shot at the second suspect in defence at close range, there is a chance that his DNA has transferred to the weapon during the struggle.
The offenders said stuff to me. I've got no reason to lie. I was there, had the conversation. I know what he said to me. And I think you got to look at who's in what situation here. Who's the one locked up for it? It's frustrating, and it's more frustrating the fact that there's nothing else on here that puts him at that scene. But that's his stance at the minute, so the only thing we can do is run the gun.
Despite the unexplained marks on his body, the detectives don't have any evidence to charge him with. So he's released while further forensic testing can be done on the gun.
So the original offence, the aggravated burglary, you can release under investigation. You sort the paperwork out for that at the moment. Thank you.
The suspect's alleged to have grabbed the barrel.
Yeah.
So if he's grabbed the barrel, he's either coming at it like that or coming at it like that or like that. So really, if you swab the whole of that face, any recesses and ridges just as one area for DNA, that can go and the blood can be retained.
Lovely.
The last hope in the forensic strategy for identifying the second offender now rests entirely on finding DNA on the barrel of the victim's BB gun. 2 days later, the results are in.
Got the forensic back. DNA profile fully represented. Nothing for anybody who's been arrested.
Oh.
Not there.
Welcome to the real world, really, isn't it? It's not like CSI where, you know, they get positive results all the time, and it's not like that for us.
With the forensic evidence stacked against him, Lee Dunn pleaded guilty to aggravated burglary with an offensive weapon and was jailed for 10 years. The second offender is still unknown.
Forensically, it would be really difficult for somebody to commit a crime and not leave any forensic evidence. But maybe he didn't touch anything. Maybe he didn't leave anything behind with his DNA on it. His footwear should be in there, but once you have a lot of blood contaminating the floor, we might have lost his footwear marks. We might have his footwear marks. We might not have the footwear to match the footwear marks.
Lose your tools?
Forensically, how did we get Lee Dunn? He bled. We got his blood. Did we get anything else on Lee Dunn? We got the mask. He left a mask with his DNA on. Second offender didn't bleed, didn't leave their mask. Has disposed of their shoes, potentially. We haven't got a second offender forensically linked to that scene.
But on the rape case, the second offender's DNA is known, and detectives are waiting to hear if it matches anyone on the national database.
Let's have a look. Saeed Mahmood Rasooli. He's got a warrant for sexual exploitation.
Oh my God, he gave the right name.
20 arrests. He's got a temp rape there. So he's Kurdish.
But immigration have no leads on where he's living.
We've got this name and the face, but we still have absolutely no idea where they are. Nothing on PNC.
Right.
Immigration, he is a failed asylum seeker that's been discontinued from, like, everything, really. However, they're not applying for deportation because he's from Iran. But the guy from FIB, he said he doesn't think he would be allowed to work. So wherever he's working, it's more than likely to be illegally.
Chances are he's going to be working in car washes or takeaways of some description.
Saeed could be working at any of the 20,000 unregulated car washes in the UK. With no sign of him in the Sunderland area, a call is put out to all units in the North East. And 3 days later, an arrest is made.
Rasuli's been locked up.
You're joking?
Nah.
Where at?
Car wash in Middlesbrough.
In Middlesbrough? Oh my God. Who got him?
NST. Or one of like.
I'm totally amazed.
Are you okay to stay on?
Yeah, it's fine.
Did some inquiries at, I think it was a car wash. Obviously, they shot in car wash, and they've done other inquiries, which has led them on to Middlesbrough car washes. We get him interviewed tonight.
Yeah.
Hello, it's Craig Hewson from the rape team. I don't want the circumstances regarding the DNA hit disclosed to him. All right, excellent.
Hi, is this Saeed, is it? Yes. And the offence being rape of?
What we want to do is give him the opportunity to give his version of events. So I don't want him to know what we have.
Would you like me to contact you, a solicitor or a lawyer? No. Are you sure?
He may come around, turn around and say, I have no idea who the complainant is, I wasn't there, I didn't have sex with her. Which obviously then we can then introduce the forensic evidence and disprove his account. Once he's given his account, we probe that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the forensic evidence depends what he says. If he denies having sex with her, then that would come in at the later stage of the interview.
Yeah.
As part of a challenge phase.
Hello there. We're going to get you interviewed. Follow me, please.
Sort?
Sorted.
Right. What I don't particularly want is for him to come and say it was a consensual account, because the forensics then become less impactful.
On the 23rd of May 2018, did you rape someone?
تو هیچ کسی علاقه کردو به زورگابیته؟ No.
On that day, the 23rd of May, did you have sex with any female?
I don't know.
Okay. Have you recently had sex with anyone? And do you know who that female was?
از این که بود.
دیگه ما تو بالا بخوام آدم نشون بده سویت که راک شامو لازم بحث قلبه ده كان مو بخوش عيني بهذا السري وتلاسيم بس عالم كلي برا بس الجنيه إذا هذا يقولوا قندري.
So did you have sex with her?
بيني بوافرتي عفرتها شغلي بومن شغلي.
Did you put your penis inside her vagina?
من نعلم أقرب لهم كوما درو كم تياسم قبل إنهم قاعد درو بس من أراك شو لسه قلبنا عفرتك.
So did your penis go inside her vagina?
والله نحن نمشي من أولاقي وإذا نازل شلنا وقلنا.
Did you have an erection?
تمام شيء أمر خبير. جو عفرت بيد سكوش دانش بابا عفرت سنز راشيشة وخوش عفرت سنز راشيشة. أجر خوش كده بلا أشكي استي بس خوش كده نبيت بيد سقال بنتم طبعا سامسونج.
So, have you ejaculated? Have you ejaculated inside of her or not? Why? Why do you not know? As a male, you would know whether you ejaculated or not. Okay. Saeed, we've been in this interview for an hour. We're just going to take a short break.
Well, not what I was expecting.
No, it wasn't. I don't know if I've had sex, which sounds a load of rubbish. You either know whether you've had sex or you don't.
I have no idea what you're thinking. I've never heard anyone give an account like that, where they've said they don't know if they've had sex with somebody.
If I say I don't know, if they do find forensics, then I can account for them. If they don't find forensics, then I can account for that as well. Forensics does play a major part because in this case, having the forensic evidence, it helps massively in relation to interviewing
After the female rang the police, she underwent a medical examination to find forensic evidence inside her vagina. In that examination, DNA was found and it was sent off to a lab. What do you think we've found? Do you think we've found your semen inside her vagina? Well, we did. We found your semen inside her vagina, okay? So we found forensic evidence that says you did have sex with her and you did ejaculate inside her vagina.
From the endocervical swabs, which is up near the cervix, we found your semen and Raz's semen. Why is your semen at the top of her vagina?
I don't know.
You've said that you don't know whether you even had sex with her and you don't even know whether you ejaculated.
I'm going to there for I never ever in my life I've never not touched a woman. If a woman not touching me.
That's not what the evidence is supporting. You don't even know whether you had sex with her and you don't even know if your penis went in her vagina and you don't even know whether you've ejaculated. That just seems ridiculous.
4 hours after the police interview, the Crown Prosecution Service decides to charge Saeed with rape.
He charged that on Wednesday, 23rd of May 2018 at Sunderland, intentionally penetrated the vagina of a woman with your penis when she did not consent and you did not reasonably believe that she was consenting. That's contrary to Section 1 of the Sexual Offences Act 2003. Do you understand that charge?
Source level DNA just brings somebody into the picture. It's not simply a case of there's your DNA profile, case solved. But once you've got that DNA identification, you then have to go back to the fact it's semen, and it's semen on a vaginal swab, or it's blood on a suspect from a murder or an assault, or it's saliva on a cigarette end left in a scene by a burglar. It needs to go beyond the DNA to the meaning of that DNA, where you've got it from, and what does it mean to that investigation? That's when it gets exciting. It's for the judge and the jury to decide if that person has committed the offence.
Hello?
Hi, it's Cassie.
Hi, Cassie.
The jury are back with a verdict?
Yeah.
Yeah, both of them were found guilty.
Guilty?
Yeah, both of them.
What does guilty mean?
It means that they're going to go to prison.
Oh, yes.
The forensics have really worked to our advantage in this case. It doesn't undo it. It doesn't make it better. Hi. Just hope she does move on with her life.
Could you succeed in the world of forensics? Try our Crime Scene Interactive and see how to solve a crime by following the forensic evidence at bbc.co.uk/real CSI and follow the links to the Open University.